Welcome to Hoystory on Air, Season 2, Episode 10. It is Thursday, February 5th, 2026. Single subject show today, not going to be too long. It's about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, journalism. But yesterday, the Washington Post laid off more than 300 journalists, the layoffs cut into the Post's local, international, and sports coverage, and reduced its entire workforce by about 30%. So do the math, 30%, that means they've got 1,000 people on the payroll. It hasn't been a good environment for newspapers as a whole for the past decade and a half. Sports department, completely gutted the sports department. I don't think that's particularly a good idea. I mean, you've got the Washington Nationals, you've got the Capitals, you've got the Redskins, Guardians. No, the Guardians is the Cleveland baseball team. The Commanders. It shows you how much I care about football now, NFL football nowadays. And the other thing is, if you're going to cover local news, high school sports, that's college sports, that sort of thing. I mean, that runs subscriptions. I feel sorry for the people who lost their jobs. Generally, they cut out a lot of their foreign coverage, foreign reporters, the entire Middle East team, which probably should have been canned a long time ago because it seemed to. I mean, they made so many mistakes that had to be corrected. It seemed like when they covered the Israeli, Gaza conflict, they were always skeptical about the Israelis and never skeptical about Hamas and the numbers they were peddling. Required to make too many corrections. Too many corrections should get your butt fired as a journalist. So I know how this feels. This is the article that was published on the day I was informed that I was going to be laid off the San Diego Union-Tribune, way back in 2009. Published May 7th. May 6th was the day that they did the layoffs. In California law, they had to give us, I believe, 60 days. And when they laid, it's a weird feeling. When that happened to me, I walked into the newsroom, saw, a bunch of photographers gathered outside the employee entrance off to the side, talking. And I was like, that was odd to me. I'd never seen that before. Why are they talking outside? And walked up to the newsroom, and the newsroom was eerily quiet. Not a whole lot of kind of boisterous conversations going on, which is what I was more used to. Went in, sat down, and one of the other page designers said they're laying people off. So-and-so came in earlier today. They got called into the boss's office and was laid off. I'm like, oh, I thought to myself, well, if so-and-so, and then they sent him home. So, well, if they did that, I mean, he's supposed to be doing this today, so we need to let's go talk to our immediate supervisor and figure out how we're going to divvy up the work, because there's more work to do if he's not in today. And right about that time, my phone rang, and I got called into not my immediate supervisor's office, but the one above her, and handed my walking papers. And I'll confess at the time, I did not think I was going to be laid off. I'd been very involved. In 2009, the San Diego Union-Tribune, to my knowledge, was the last newspaper in the U.S., probably the last newspaper in the world, that wasn't paginated. They weren't doing digital pagination. We did some of it, but when you did the daily paper, the Metro section and the national news, front page section, those were still assembled by running, galleys of paper through a wax machine to wax the back of it, and then we had people in the back cutting with X-Acto knives and laying them down so they could be photographed and printed. They'd been doing it that way since, the 80s probably. And I'd been heavily involved because I had technical skills. I was a journalist, but I knew computers, I knew the programs, I'd gone through pagination systems changes or introducing pagination at 2 newspapers I'd worked at previously. So I kind of knew the process. And I thought, oh, there's no way they're going to lay me off. I'm too valuable. Wrong. No one's too valuable. I did get payback a little later because a few months later, they adopted and were moving to a pagination system. And they had fired basically me, the only person who understood Adobe InDesign well enough to set up templates and to set them up so they weren't squirrely and whatnot. So they hired me back for a month or so at a wildly inflated rate. And I did that for them. But I know I've experienced this thing. When they make these cuts, they make a lot of dumb decisions, because at the same time, the Union-Tribune cut the Padres beat reporter. And this is, as you can see, this happened May 6th. He had purchased non-transferable airline tickets to coincide with the Padres away schedule. And so there were several, in addition to laying them off, there were several $1,000s of useless plane tickets at that point. Didn't get refunded. It's not a fun experience, as anyone who's lost a job like that can tell you. I was a little bit irked because it's like the next day, people come back in, but you're the Walking Dead. They've got to keep you on for 60 days because that's California law, because they've laid off more than 100 people. So I show up the next day, and as does everyone else, and they quickly realize this probably isn't going to work, especially the advertising people they laid off. Advertising people, they just sat there. They wouldn't answer the phones. They wouldn't do anything because what are they going to do, fire you? They've already fired you. So they said basically to most of the 192 people who they sacked, they said, just don't come in. We'll keep on paying you as long as we've got to pay you. Then you'll get your severance. And just don't come in. Except for people who were too valuable to do that with, but not too valuable to keep on the staff. And I was one of those people. So I continued to work for another month. I had to come in. Yeah. I thought, there were people in different departments who thought, I thought they were keeping you, on my last day there. It's like, no, they kept me long enough because they cut too thin. And I'm a good employee. So I understand how these people feel. It sucks. Over at National Review, this piece by Noah Rothman, there are lots of people who are diagnosing what happened to the Washington Post as being a result of recent moves by owner Jeff Bezos, who also owns Amazon. That's kind of where he made his money. And he bought the Washington Post, and about a year ago, he's like, look, we need to move further politically right. Because the Washington Post, when, they're the ones, democracy dies in darkness. Let's put that on our masthead after Trump was elected the first time. And the paper, a lot of it's news reporting. I'm not talking opinion point. A lot of it's news reporting just moved further to the left. No one was trying to keep them, fair and balanced, or, look at both sides, that sort of thing. And they got subscribers because of it. Oh, we're, defiant. We're not going to put up with Donald Trump. And that works for a while. But, you're alienating half the country. At least the half that voted for him. And then you get these sorts of explanations of why business is going down. Okay, they moved the editorial page somewhat to the right. I'd argue it's yes to the right, but hasn't gone to the right. It's kind of gone more to the middle. Slate contributor Alex Kirshner wrote, "There's not a serious market for hard news for conservatives." Yes, there is. There is. The problem is, a lot of the time when you get this reporting and it's time after, look for it, you'll find it. Just be aware of this and you will find it. When a Republican has a scandal or does something bad, the news article talks about the thing the Republican did that was bad. When a Democrat has a scandal or does something bad, the story is framed as how Republicans respond to the bad behavior, not the bad behavior itself. That's why you get these headlines, Republicans seize, or Republicans pounce. And sometimes the stories use those actual words. Republicans pounced on, this Democrat's bad behavior, blah, blah, blah. It's not the Democrats' bad behavior that's the news in these cases. It's the Republicans' reaction to it. So, you don't believe it. These are media doctors trying to diagnose an illness which they are incapable of diagnosing because they don't see the problem, because they live in a bubble. And he applied this salve to their wounded egos. He moved the paper's editorial page to the right to mollify Trump, which drove away much of its audience in the process. That decline is then used to justify further cuts, which Trump will also welcome. In some was a human sacrifice to Bezos' courting of Trump. I don't know if that's true. There's talk about and Bezos funded this Melania movie, as payback. I don't know. Don't care, really. I care about journalism. And I'm not sure a ton of journalism was being... I'm not sure a ton of good journalism was being done there. There was some crap journalism being done by the Washington Post. And if these cuts kind of excise that tumor, that's great. Killing the whole sports section, sports department, that's... You're killing away. You're killing some of the good stuff there. That is not necessarily all of the tumor. I'm sure there's parts in there that are the tumor. You get these sports stories in various publications all the time that are just absolute garbage. They aren't about sports. They're about, social justice or something in sports, or I don't know. You kiss Colin Kaepernick's butt about how he's the NFL is like slavery. It's like, give me a break. Give me a break. You'd go back there in a second if you could, but no one wants to deal with your crap. Rothman points out that the paper's fiscal troubles predated that change to its editorial voice. Even before the Post declined to endorse Kamala Harris, cardinal sin in the minds of its loudest detractors, it was set to lose $100 million in 2023. And then 250,000 subscribers abandoned the paper over a fit of outrage over the editorial choices at the end of last year or 2024. If you're going to be captured by your readers, that sort of thing's going to happen when it changes. And I'm not sure at the same time they were moving the editorials to more to the center, which required a movement rightward. I'm not sure that was enough to earn them back some of the independents or center-right people who'd be willing to give the paper a second chance. And then you get stuff like this this is Nicholas Kristof. He is a columnist for the New York Times. Jeff Bezos, who could keep the Washington Post a pillar of American democracy with a change dug out from his limousine seats, sets an example of surrender to authoritarianism for every other business person and institution in America. He doesn't have to spend his money. He can do what he wants with it. He doesn't have to. There's no moral good that comes from operating a business at a loss for forever. If he's willing to do that, great. If he isn't, fine too. I mean, I understand the math with lotteries. Okay, I do. But, and there was an article a few years ago talking about, yes, even people who understand the math with lotteries is you're probably not going to win. Somebody's going to win. It's probably not going to be you. But what buying a ticket kind of gives you is kind of a license to daydream. Well, if I had, it's, the Mega Millions is up to $1.2 billion. If I take it all in one lump sum, that's half of it. So that's about $600 million. Once the government takes its cut, maybe I'm at 380, $380 million. What would I do? And I'll confess, I've, daydreamed a bit. If I had $380 million, I'd probably go and buy the San Diego Union-Tribune, where I got laid off from. And because I care about journalism, I really do. I'd buy it. I'd invest money in it, but I'm not going to take a loss on it. At least not long term. Maybe, weather some economic headwinds. I'll take a loss from year to year, maybe, but not a structural one. I'll move the editorial page more to the center because it's, it used to be a conservative editorial page. It's now a left-wing editorial page. I'd move it back to the center, probably a little bit to the right. And I'd be involved in the, day-to-day editorial process because I want to. But that's been my little daydream. Because I think a lot of these, especially, the Washington Post had some fat to cut. I'm sorry to say that. There was fat there to cut. And honestly, journalists, they get so excited. I remember right before we got laid off at the Union-Tribune, there was talk, hey, maybe we can get Bezos to buy us too. And, print is going away. He could, if you buy a 2-year subscription to the paper, he could give everybody a Kindle and that's how you get your newspaper. There was a case in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara got his stream. It was having, the news press there was having financial problems. And they sold it to Wendy McCaw, who lived there and got her wealth basically from her husband, who did McCaw, Nextel Cellular, some cellular company. And she had $370 million. And so she bought the newspaper. She wasn't a journalist, though. She had a history degree from Stanford. Not sure why that would be particularly useful, but anyways. But she bought it, and then the thing blew up. The paper entered bankruptcy in 2023 after she just basically destroyed the thing. This is from Grokpedia, which isn't bad as far as content goes. It kind of covers over some things. McCaw adopted a hands-on approach to the editorial operations, directing managers to identify and rectify what she described as pervasive biased reporting in news articles. Yeah, that's a way to put it. I think she was a little more hands-on, a little more. It'd be like, Steve Bannon or Caroline Leavitt, running the thing. It wouldn't have been necessarily neutral. Second paragraph, on July 6, 2006, editor Jerry Roberts resigned alongside 4 other top executives and a columnist, publicly attributing their departure to McCaw's growing involvement in non-editorial news decisions, which they claimed eroded the paper's credibility. True, and this is where Grokpedia falls down a little bit, that's kind of sugarcoating what she did. This is from a Santa Barbara Independent article 15 years later talking about the bankruptcy of the paper, basically. The meltdown was triggered when McCaw disciplined Camilla Cohey Barnwell, then a reporter and now public information officer for the Santa Barbara Unified School District, for violating rules that did not exist. Barnwell was reporting on a land use dispute involving actor Rob Lowe, then a Montecito resident and social friend of McCaw, In her coverage, Barnwell published the address of the property in question and identified Lowe, who spoke publicly on the matter. For McCaw, this crossed a line. Barnwell was given a disciplinary letter in her file, as were 2 editors involved in the story. Yeah, this is journalism, and it was a big deal at the time. So Graka Pete is soft-pedaling this. But you wish for a billionaire to come and save your newspaper and save your job. Sometimes you get this. And, at the same time I was hoping, maybe Bezos will buy us at the Union-Tribune. I knew this had been going on at the news press, and it's like, it's not all, sunshine and lollipops, okay? Speaking of stuff that needs to be cut, here's one of the reporters, Akilah Johnson. In 2021, I was hired by the Washington Post to cover health disparities and explore the way racism, social equity affects health. 4 months ago, I became the Generations reporter, exploring how health is experienced by different people across the life course. Today, I was laid off. Sorry. I'm sure she'll land at some sort of think tank like the Kaiser Family Foundation, something like that. But she started getting responses like the one listed below. If you were looking for a reason why you were laid off, you just said it. And at that point, and a few others, she limited replies on it, which, typical of many journalists, and there are many journalists who are way thin-skinned. She's one of them. But here's the thing. So you go over to the Washington Post, you can go over to her webpage, click on her name, join the Washington Post 2020 as a national reporter exploring the effect of racism and social inequality on health. She's been a ProPublica, Boston Globe. She's got a master's degree from University of Miami in journalism. Master's degree in journalism. People have suggested I get a master's degree. I'm not sure I'd want one in journalism. I'm not sure what a master's degree in journalism is good for, other than if you want to teach journalism at a JC. Go figure. And then it lists her, stories she's done below. Here's the last story she wrote for the Washington Post on January 26th. New evidence shows how discrimination shortens lives in Black communities. Researchers linked higher inflammation levels to decades of stress, including discrimination and economic hardship. Sounds like poor. Economic hardship. Is it higher in Blacks because of the discrimination, or is it because of the economic hardship? Economic hardship, you work tough jobs, it shortens life. This to me is a little, you're bringing your preconceived notions to it, and let's apply them to it, and let's get a headline. For the record, it lists all the stories she's done from the Washington Post. If you click on the link, and it'll be in the news dump below. Since she was hired in 2021, she has done 60 stories and a Q&A. The Q&A was around COVID. 60 stories, 5 years. Let's do the math. That's 12 stories a year. That's 1 story a month. I guarantee you she's being paid 6 figures for 1 story a month for 5 years. When I worked at smaller newspapers, and I did some enterprise stuff. You can go to my website, MatthewHoy.com. There's a story I did on the 15th anniversary of the Challenger explosion. And that was a big deal in Lompoc because up until that, they had been planning on launching some space shuttles from Vandenberg Air Force Base, now Space Force Base. So that kind of changed. If you don't have to go to Florida to watch a shuttle launch, that was going to be a big deal. But you can read that story at MatthewHoy.com. 60 stories in 5 years. I did more than 60 stories in a month and a half at the Lompoc Record. Again, a lot of them are just daily, this happened, that happened, whatnot. But I'd be curious, I'd be curious to know what she was being paid and what that worked out to a word count on these stories she wrote. How many cents a word? I got a feeling it was several bucks a word for every word that she wrote. That's expensive. I'm not sure how much this contributed to their coverage, how many people are reading this, how much this is talked about. I'd be curious to see the traffic on the digital versions of these stories. How many people were reading these things? I got a feeling that she's probably one of the ones they should have cut. Again, follow me, Substack, Hoystory. I'm doing a lot more of the shorter videos. I hope this video is short. What's it say this one's at here? Never tell. It's supposed to say, oh, there it is. This is less than 30 minutes. This will be less than 30 minutes. I have been popping up and doing those, 3-minute long shorts on stuff that interests me. Please continue to follow me. I got a email yesterday about a job I'd applied for, a reporting job locally. I applied for back in August. I don't think they filled it, but they bothered to close it today or yesterday and sent me the email saying thank you for applying. I think it's one of those phantom jobs. So this is how I'm hoping to make money, ladies and gentlemen. I need your help. If you would subscribe to my Substack in the paying form. If you can't afford that, watch, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on X. If I can get enough followers and people retweeting stuff on X, X will pay me. You don't even have to pay me. X will pay me. Thanks for watching. Fellow journalists, I feel for you. I really do. But other people experience layoffs too. It's the way the world works. Don't act like it's the end of history or the end of journalism. Journalism has changed. It continues to change, and not always for the good. Again, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Thanks for watching. See you next time.